Welcome to Lift Your Legacy. My name is Jacob Rupp, father, husband, and rabbi. And each week we bring you an inspiring person or message to help you unlock your inner potential and create change that will impact the future. Thank you for listening, and let's get to it. Ladies and gentlemen, all the way from Lakewood, New Jersey, I'm thrilled to have Yoel Margulies, who is the director of Bike for Chai, which is Chai Lifeline's main fundraiser, and in the Jewish world, pretty much the biggest fundraiser there is. And Yoel has built it from the ground up. We speak about nonprofit work, finding your stride, finding a company and a cause that you're passionate about, and how to manage expectations when you build something that's amazingly successful. Like, how do you get it better? So there's a lot of very practical takeaways for those of you in the nonprofit world, the for-profit world, pretty much everybody. So I'm thrilled to have Yoel on. There's a lot of very practical pieces. Thank you. Well, ladies and gentlemen, this podcast has been brought to you by me, Jacob Rupp, and Jacob Rupp's Consulting, technically Lift Your Legacy. Now, I have to be honest, I help clients often get out of their own way. And something that has really held me up was exactly the same thing, that I was in my own way. For months, people have been saying, talk about your coaching, talk about how you help people, share it, etc. And I had a really hard time putting it out there. Why? Because it's not that I don't think I do a great job. I've seen amazing results from my clients, 10x, even more than that. Businesses, fixed relationships, helped people lose a lot of weight. People go on the path of making goals and fulfilling their goals. All of these things, I know I do it. And I've been in the coaching space long enough to know that there's a lot of people that don't really deliver. And the ones that do really deliver are worth literally their weight in gold, because so often we're held back by stuff. And it's just like, if only I could get over that, if only I could work through that. And I help people do that. But for me, my big holdup was sharing that I do this in a big way, in a public way, especially on the podcast, because it's awkward. I don't want people to think, oh, I'm just making the podcast to sell you stuff or to talk about stuff. So that's not what I'm doing. My point is like this. My coaching business is expanding. I'm taking on a few more clients. If you are someone that is struggling in the area of self-esteem, goal setting, health, relationships, or your business, really, reach out. I don't know if we're a good fit to work with each other. What I can guarantee you is that we'll get on the phone for half an hour. I'll hear the kind of challenges you're having. You'll get a good feel, if you don't know me yet, of the kind of work I do, kind of program I would recommend for you. And if it's a great fit, we'll move forward. And if not, not. But I wanted to appreciate very much from the bottom of my heart the fact that you guys all listen. I appreciate the amazing guests that I have. And I'm really thrilled to have broken through in my own life to the point where I could actually devote a segment to really make a somewhat long-winded, but I think very important advertisement. So if you want to reach out to me, the email is rabbi, R-A-B-B-I, Rupp @gmail.com. And the website is liftyourlegacy.live, and at lift_your_legacy on Instagram. I think it's pretty simple. You know where to find me because you found the podcast. Thank you so much. Bring on to the cloud, you're recording. Okay, Yoel Margulies, thank you very much for joining me today. You are the director of Bike for Chai, which is the most important and most significant fundraiser for Chai Lifeline. Tell me a little bit about how you got involved with this very important organization, what it does, and why you're so passionate about biking.
So funny, only because we're on a webcam, you can't see why my being passionate about that biking is very ironic.
Okay.
Suffice it to say, I don't look like your average cyclist. But I will tell you that Chai Lifeline, I've been working now with Chai Lifeline for about a little more than 12 years. And I had lived in Eretz Yisrael for a bunch of years. When I came back, I was working for different organizations. A friend of mine who already was working here asked me to come help him with the event. Came in, just like that. That's how that rolled in terms of coming into Chai Lifeline. And the truth is, after having worked at so many different nonprofit organizations throughout the years that I lived in Israel and once I had moved back, I fell in love with Chai Lifeline because I always found something unique in Chai Lifeline, in that the way it's run is that the focus on the services is as much on the fundraising as it is on the services, and vice versa, which sometimes you go to an organization, you're very focused on the services, sometimes you're very focused on the fundraising, but to find that they demanded as much from both sides, that the case managers, what we do to help the families and how we're helping, that's done to such an extreme and with such a pressure to make sure it's done professionally and done right, and yet at the same time, that also gives Rabbi Scholar the ability to turn to the fundraiser and say, okay, you got to do the same thing. We have a lot we have to accomplish. The Chai Lifeline as an organization takes care of takes care of families dealing with serious pediatric illness, whether it be cancer, genetic diseases, anything like that. They run a whole host of different programs that are 100% free for the families. They have a budget of about $27 million a year, helping over 5,800 families worldwide. We have 6 regional offices in the States, 2 in Canada, and we have Antwerp, Israel, England. So it's helping in tremendous ways.
How did you get involved with the biking?
So the biking is a funny story. I'll tell you, it's really our back end story as to how Bike for Chai really started, and that is the flagship program of Chai Lifeline is Camp Simcha and Camp Simcha Special. It's an overnight, medically supervised overnight camp up in upstate New York, Glen Spey area, and the kids come from all over the world, and we have a bunch of different sessions, but over 8 weeks, kids come and they have their 2-week session to be kids again. We had a volunteer I'm based in Lakewood, New Jersey, so we had a volunteer from down here in Lakewood who was going to volunteer up in camp. He had volunteered all year round helping out with suppers and different things. He wanted to go up to camp to help out as a counselor or something over there, and he wanted to bring his bike. And they didn't let him. They said there was no room on the staff bus. So he walked into the office. He goes, "That's it, I'm biking up to camp." We were like, "You're crazy. It's 150 miles from here." He said, "I'm biking anyway." It's an old mountain bike. He says, "No, I'm doing it anyway." I said, "If you're doing it anyway, let's turn this into something." And that was really how it started. Like David Eggert, he really gets the credit. He's actually now a chaplain in the U.S. Army, but he was the first biker, and he did that ride. He did it all mostly in one day. I had him stop actually overnight, like 5 miles outside of the camp, just because I wanted to come up there and greet him as he came in. But then the next year is when we turned it into a real event, where we turned it into a serious fundraiser. We said, okay, let's do this. 5 weeks beforehand, we thought we were going to recruit 15, 20 guys, raise a few $1,000s. We ended up recruiting 40 guys, raised $220,000, and that was Bike for Chai. And this is year 10. So this is, it was 10 years ago. It's a really interesting. There's a couple of points here I want to illustrate. A lot of times we have great ideas, or we see some kind of an idea, and we kind of put it out there. So what was it about this particular idea where you said, let's make it something? And not only just you, but the next year, let's try to build this into something. Like, why did you pick this thing? And when did you start thinking I'm really onto something versus like, I got to keep my options open? Excellent question. So as far as going to the first question first, as far as the, why we decided to do something, I think it was part of David's personality. It's who he is, who he was. And, at that point in time, he's a guy who was very involved in the community. He's always around helping, always running. He was a name that everybody knew in that sense, as somebody who would happily talk about it to the world, so to speak. So if he was going to do it, it was just a perfect opportunity to say, David, you're going to raise money for this. Let's do something with it. So that really was, why we kind of took a hold of that. I can't say that I had any bigger thoughts as to other than that. Like it was just a great. No, but
it started by you identifying someone that could really help the organization. So that's the first point, which is important.
100%. 100%. There's definitely, knowing who you're dealing with is for sure. That's where you got to start. You look in your toolbox, so to speak. You're like, I got a hammer. Looks like I got to find some nails. Exactly.
Great. Okay.
So, that definitely worked out well. The next year, when it was really, there was a guy who, not even from High Lifeline, Elliot Zaks. He works in Madison Title. He came to Rabbi Fried, who's officially my boss, the executive director, for Bike for Chai, and he came to him and said, let's really, he was riding with David a bunch, and he said, okay, I loved what David did last year. I love what you did with it. Let's do something big. Let's really turn it into. And so Sroli, myself, and Elliot, we said, let's make this happen. I think we knew we were onto something in a very, very short amount of time, because just the passion that people have for it, and right away. I mean, to go in 5 weeks to raise 220,000 back then. Nowadays, like every charity campaign, everything's like, it almost seems like, what do you mean 200,000? That's easy. But 10 years ago, before you had all these campaigns, before anybody was doing this type of stuff, that was a huge deal, and it happened instantaneously. People just got passionate about it fast.
What was it they were passionate about? The idea of bike riding, the idea about the specific like organization, how it goes together. Like what did you see that sparked so much interest? Because I mean, like, frankly, this thing that you uncovered or that you discovered is something that every fundraiser, every development person would want to find. Every business person would want to find, oh, I made this thing and everyone's super interested in it. So what was it, do you think, that sparked the passion?
So it's a combination of two factors. It's obviously cycling in general happens to be something, and even more so nowadays, or maybe just because I'm more involved with it, I think that, but cycling is something that people get passionate about. They really do. It becomes how they get up in the morning. What am I eating? When am I riding? How am I coming back? Like, it's just, when you're into cycling, you're into cycling. So that was one key component, that it was something that people are passionate about, that they're doing, they're physically putting themselves into. The other thing was, our finish line was we rode up to camp. And when you go and you see the kids that you're helping, and you see the finish line, you see it so tangibly. And that right there was, let's put it like this. If I had to say it in the most honest way possible, knowing I was on to something wasn't really until right after the event happened, because at that point in time, when every single guy was like, we're doing this again, and we're going to keep doing this for the rest of our life. Like, that was, and the truth is, like, that type of a finish line where you're really seeing it and you feel it, and that emotion together with all the effort and energy and training and whatnot that you put up until that point, that combination of those two things became something that it had to happen again.
So the takeaway, first of all, is don't reinvent the wheel. Find something that people are already involved with. Find a lifestyle, and I guess it circulates in the firm world, what's popular every decade or whatever it might be, but find something that people are very very passionate about, that has its own kind of subculture that people already want to do, and then so closely connected to your organization that people directly see how what they're doing is going to impact it. Because, a lot of times it's like, an organization will do a dinner and a bunch of wealthy people getting together and having sushi doesn't really connect to the core mission of what a certain organization is doing. But what it sounds like over here is that part, like the goal that everyone's trying to go for is what you're raising money for.
Correct. I think those are 100% true. 100% true. Yeah. Okay. To me, I've always said, and it's one of the things like where I like cycling so much, as this type of an idea, is because it's also something that really, like, at this point in time, whenever somebody's getting on a bike, even though that's 6 months before my event, they're thinking about Bike for Chai, as opposed to if you do like you do an event that somebody can do easily. You do like let's say a 3K walk or something like that, where anybody could do without training, then they don't spend that time thinking about it, because it's not something that comes to until you don't have to really prepare for it.
Right.
So it's the doing something that people love, but something that that requires a little more effort. It requires more of an investment on their part. They got to train for it. They have to think about it. And that, together with what it is that their goal is, becomes much more powerful and something they want to really raise money for.
So that also is such a in a way, very counterintuitive way. People think, I want to make an ask that is not inconvenient. And you're saying, no, the opposite. You want to find something that's so inconvenient that in the course of them serving or getting into what they're getting into, they're going to be so inconvenienced that they're thinking about this for months. It's not like, again, it's like, oh, what night is the dinner again next week? It's like, no, it's like, this is something I've been planning for half a year or an entire year.
Correct. And it's something that I believe this strongly because I've seen it over and over again. I think when people invest, when they have to invest into something, like I say all the time, yes, we treat the guys like royalty. I mean, you come on Bike for Chai, I'm sure you've heard about it, but anybody who hasn't, like, you could look online, you could see the guys get treated well, and it's awesome time. That being said, it is, I don't view it as a vacation. I don't think any of the guys who come view it as a vacation. It's enjoyable. It's very enjoyable. But this is work. And they're here to accomplish something, and they walk out feeling like $1 million because they actually accomplished something. A lot more.
Which is also, again, counterintuitive because a lot of times you think, I'm just looking at sort of like the conventional way that people go about raising money is that, if you have a successful guy in whatever it is, a hedge fund manager or something like that, he gets up and talks about how he managed a hedge fund, which, for a lot of nonprofits, like really doesn't have much to do with it. We just kind of give him, the covet because he's successful, where you're taking the guy out of the hedge fund, you're slapping a pair of bike shorts on him and you're like, get moving. And so he's only going to be as good as, again, I guess the idea is that it's counterintuitive because you're taking someone out of their comfort zone, out of what they're naturally necessarily great at. You're not going to professional athletes or professional, bicyclists. You're taking normal guys and saying, get good at something that is far outside of necessarily your comfort zone or your fitness zone.
Correct. And at the same time, you balance both because, we make it a challenging event, even for the professionals, even for the guys who are good. And you attract that crowd as well. And obviously you make it as we support it well enough that even the guy who can't get good at it is also taken care of. So you balance those things. You're not looking to make this impossible for people, but you are looking to make it something that they have to invest in. That's the bottom line. You want them to be invested. When they're invested, and that's why the truth of the matter is, besides for the crazy numbers that we've had, which has been, crazy.
Give me some numbers.
No, last year alone, we had 540 cyclists raised $9.9 million. When you average that out per rider, you're talking about over $18,500 per person, wow, which is the largest per capita cycling charity event in the world.
Wow. Okay, that's good.
Don't raise that much per person on any other charity cycling event anywhere in the world. The closest one that I've seen, and there's a lot of different research in the top 30s and all those different reports and things that are out there. The closest I've come to is someone who raises $7,500 to $8,000 per person. We're at $18,500 per.
More than double.
So you're talking about, and part of that is because they're investing, but also it comes because it's the returning riders, and our percentage of returning riders is very high. It's 85, 90, sometimes 95% returning riders, and they're the ones who keep raising more and more because they get more and more passionate about it.
How do you build on success? I think that one of the big challenges that a lot of people have is, they do so, they hit a home run and then it's like, you got to get up to bat the next day. So in year 2 or year 3, or you just threw this, massive number out, $9.9 million and 500 over 540, whatever it was. Do you get intimidated about what the future holds? Like, how do you get up after doing a great job and try to do a great job and try to beat that the next day?
I would be lying if I said I was not intimidated. Okay. I would be absolutely lying if I said that. 100% intimidated. It's something that we think about and we talk about all the time. Myself, my colleagues, we like, this is something all the time. I really think the answer to it is what we've been doing in that sense, is that we talk to the riders. It's building the relationships. The only way you're going to make it better is when you hear more and more from the people who are out there actually doing it, and find out what makes them tick, what they want, what they want to see better, what they're looking to experience, what it is that their friends would want, they want to bring in their friends. Oh, I have this friend who's a hedge fund manager, who's worth $750 billion. We want him to come in. Okay, how am I getting him? Like, what does he need? What does he want? Hear that, listen to that, you have to stop thinking that you know it. That's really what it boils down to. Is if you think you got it, like I hit the home run, I was it for everything, and it was all me, then maybe that'll work once, maybe it'll work twice, maybe it'll work 3 times, but at some point in time, you're gonna fall flat on your face. It's never all you. It never is. It's never been all me. Not one point in time, even when it was so small to where it is right now, it's never been all me. It's about listening and talking to the guys, listen to your colleagues, build it that way. And you could do tremendous. And I think that's probably true in any business. It's probably true anywhere you're looking to grow success. You have to hear real feedback, which means you have to be interacting and creating those personal relationships.
It's so interesting because maybe just because I'm a diehard Apple fan, but there's so much. Within the last 10 years after iPhone came out, and Steve Jobs died. So everyone's saying that Apple stopped innovating. And what Apple's really been doing, it sounds like to me, is what they've been listening to their customers. And so it's like, I'm not going to necessarily change the market now that I've got something that's working. But if people want a better camera, we'll put a better camera. If people want more, memory and storage, we'll put more memory and storage. And now what's happening is that some news came out that they are making this big transition, but I guess you don't feel a need, as long as your product keeps getting better and the end goal keeps growing, there's no real need to reinvent the wheel. Once you stumble on something that works, try to make this as good as it is for as long as it'll go before you necessarily have to transition out. Like, you're not trying to come up with the next, I don't know, jujitsu for high. Like, no, you're just going to make bike for high as good as it possibly can be.
Correct. At the same time, I am sure the people in Apple as well, are listening and hearing and thinking, okay, what is going to be? You always have to be thinking 2-3 years ahead, right? You're thinking now, like we're coming up to the 10th year, and at the same time, I'm thinking, okay, we're going to make the 10th year something phenomenal. So what are we doing on year 11? What are we doing on year 12? Like, how are we, so you definitely have to be thinking in the future, but the same way as you're thinking in terms of that, you're keeping your eyes and ears open. You don't know what the next thing is. We didn't know Bike for Chai was going to be what it became, but you got to always look for opportunities, no question about it, but don't start jumping. Don't jump at so many things have come my way. People want me to, they want the help in doing so much, and they say, well, this is an awesome idea. And many ideas are good ideas, but it's not necessarily the thing that's going to take off. I think there are key lessons that we've learned from Bike for Chai that we keep in mind when analyzing another idea. Now, is that limiting us from being able to do the next thing? I don't know. I like to think not, but I could be wrong. I could be wrong on that. But at the same time, I think using what we've done to kind of use that as our formula when something comes our way. Does it fit into certain categories, certain things we're looking for? Is it an endurance event? Is it something that people have to invest in? Is it something that we can build relationships in? Is it something where we're talking about reaching out to networks, to where people can, have a place to shine, where people can be given the respect that they want? Do they have something they have bragging rights about? These are like just little tidbits that I think about when somebody comes to me with another event. Okay, I want to do Jitsu for Chai. How proud are people when they say that I won a Jitsu competition? But I know how proud people are when they say I biked 500 miles. Right?
For sure. So go ahead.
So I'm saying. So again, those type of things. So yes, I'm listening and hoping to find that next thing. But at the same time, meanwhile, we're going to focus on this and build it as big and as good as we could possibly can.
Fantastic. One thing that kind of pops up, and only because you said it and not me, is you made a passing joke that you don't look like a professional bicyclist, and what goes into that. So 2 questions. First of all, do you think that is that an asset, in the sense that, if you have a guy that is not a world-class bicyclist but wants to do it or wants to try it, he can look at someone like yourself and say, well, he can do it, I can do it, we're going to do it together. And the second question is there an element of I don't want to say a lot of people feel like they can't represent something if they don't 1000% look the part, So it's like, how do you overcome that?
So that's gotten easier and easier as the years have gone on, because we have more and more people that I could turn to. And there's, there are people on our ride that clearly don't look the part. And to anybody who, who we're talking to, who we really want to get in the door, I could very easily point to somebody to say it. I think in terms of my role as the director of the ride and of the and when it comes to building the relationships with the people and things like that, would it have helped me if I would be skinnier and more athletic and better fit? Could be yes, could be no. I think in general, it's never when the person is the director and he's the one who's putting this all together. I think it helps that I like to be a part of it, and I like to ride with the guys, and I get to go on training rides with the guys beforehand when we do events in different areas, and that's something that's nice. But even if I only get to ride with them for a mile before they all drop me, I've accomplished everything I needed to accomplish. It didn't hurt or help the fact that I was, and maybe if I was more fit, it would be a little better. I don't think that really makes a difference. I think ultimately what makes a difference is when you're genuine with people and you have built good relationships. We're all different. And I want you to be the cyclist. I'm not asking for me to be the cyclist. I'm asking for you to be the cyclist and to raise as much money as you can to help the kids. My role is to facilitate and make you have the best time possible. So if I look the way I look, maybe that helps me, maybe it doesn't. But as long as we're on the same page in terms of what we're both trying to do, I think it's almost irrelevant. And I think in my life, I've seen that to be true, that I think it's always going to be a matter of, as long as everybody knows, they know the roles that they're each playing, then they could both be pushed further and further. And how you look like doesn't really make a difference. It's fun.
I think it's a beautiful concept and a very important concept, because I think that there is such a perceived need that if I ever am going to move in a crowd of people that do X, I have to be X. And again, it's like the fundraiser who himself might not have a lot of money, or his organization might not have a lot of money, feels in a way very out of place when he goes into a room full of very, very wealthy people. But the point is, that the successful business person approaches his business to try to be the best that he can be in his business. And the fundraiser can look at himself and his cause and say, how do I become the best at that? Even if whatever it is, the externals of the other people that I'm involved with, again, like no one looks at Phil Jackson, right? The basketball coach, and says, well, why can't you dunk as good as Kobe? No, that's not his job. But it's like, how well do you do the different positions that you're in charge of?
Correct. Recently, it was funny, just recently, where another area where it kind of shows up in life as well. I just recently, I have alopecia, which means I get random baldness. So it happens to be that right now, almost all my hair grew back. But whereas if you would have looked at me a month and a half ago, 2 months ago, the whole back of my head, I bald spots here, there, everything. That's why I used to have a beard for 13 years. Now I can't grow one. But what I did right away when it first started, when I realized that this was going on, and I see that all of a sudden I'm missing parts of my my face and whatnot, was I put out a video to everybody, to my neighbors, to friends. So I put it on my Instagram, just so that people could know it's superficial, and that's what it is. It's not, thank God it wasn't it's not an illness. It's not something that's going to hurt me in any way. It just doesn't look pretty. But it didn't stop me from going to any meetings. It didn't stop me from standing up and speaking in public. It didn't stop me from being, because again, my role is what it is, and the looks that I have, that's from God. So obviously we could put in our own effort for what we have to do, but that's not the things that are going to stop. That should stop you from moving forward.
It's interesting. I have a tendency to do something similar. Is when I become aware of something that I'm not comfortable with, I'm usually the first one to identify it. And I make it very, very clear, do you see this, what's going on in my face, whatever? And people be like, well, either yes or no. But it's like important for me to be able to get that thing out so people know I'm aware of it also. So do you advise for a person who is dealing with something that they are embarrassed about or feel uncomfortable about, do you advise them, how do you advise kind of getting over that uncomfortableness? Because again, on one hand, it's like you did this. On the other hand, a person's thinking to himself like, if I'm embarrassed about public speaking, making a video about how I'm embarrassed about public speaking is like the last thing I would ever do. So how are you able to detach yourself from that thing which might be, not the way that you want it to be?
So it's, I think it's like anything. I think it's a matter of, you have to, it also, I guess it depends on what it is, on what it is that you're talking about. But you have to look at the world. You have to like people. You have to look at people and see that everybody's got something. There's so much out there. Like, really, the fact that I'm bald is going to make the biggest difference in the world to somebody else. The fact that I get up at a public speech and I'm stuttering and I can't talk properly and I'm not even making sense at first, is that really going to... Nobody's going to stop thinking about themselves for longer than 5 to 10 seconds. So, what I mean? So that's what I'm worried about. I'm worried about how they're looking at me for that 5 seconds, that 10 seconds. You have to stop thinking that the world really cares as much as it cares in terms of those type of things. What they do care about and what they will remember is who you are. They're going to remember what you are as a person. Remember the heart that you put into it, the genuineness of whether what you're saying, that comes across true, not true. Like, you could be the charismatic, suave, cool guy who's a con artist and everyone's going to hate your guts, because they don't like con artists. You could be the guy who's got all the different physical issues and they know they can rely on you and trust you and you get stuff done and you're an honest person. Then they're going to keep going back to you way before they run to the con artist. So
yeah, it's such a fascinating dichotomy that so much of, maybe it's like a Jewish, not Jewish thing, but I have like a weird thing right now where I'm listening to a lot of biographies about like certain kinds of bad people. So one thing they said about this guy, there's a serial killer, and he was such a charming guy. And you think to yourself, like, we work so hard on being charming, but you're like a crazy serial killer. On the flip side, like, the essence of who we are, the real things that change. Am I a person of chesed? Am I a person of integrity? Of, like the stuff that takes a long time to build. A lot of times we don't even spend the time trying to develop that because we're so busy working on our charm, which the most depraved people could have tremendous amounts of charm. So it's super interesting to see that the emphasis that we oftentimes put on what we want to, quote, fix in our life. I want to lose 5 to 10 pounds, but it's like, but what kind of a human being are you? Like, we focus on stuff that, again, a person's physical appearance, a person's, gifted ability, a person's ability to make money or to inspire. Like, you could be a horrible person and be able to do that kind of stuff, but we spend so much time trying to be like to acquire that skill set. So it's fascinating how that perspective is really not shared by a lot of people. Do you know what I mean?
I know exactly what you mean because I hear it, I interact with it a tremendous amount.
How so? Tell me what do you mean by that?
Because one of the things I love about my job is I get to interact with people. And when you're going to start dealing with people, you're going to interact with all different types. I happen to love people. And I tell people all the time that if there was a job that was like really tailor-made just for me, is Bike for Chai. I don't have to sit at a desk all day. I get to run around and talk to people people who like having me walk into their office. That's fun for me. Like, I enjoy people. I love the fact that, that I get to know everybody's name. We have 540 riders. I try to get to know everybody. I love making phone calls even to a new guy. And who are you? Where do you come from? Where do you go? Like, why you get into this? I like these type of things. To me, that's the fun of it. That's the exciting part of it. And I think through that, obviously, we're able to push people and say, hey, this is what we're trying to accomplish. We want to raise significant money. We have a lot of kids we need to help. We have a lot of families that need to be helped. We want to do that. And that's perfectly okay and normal to do. It's not like, oh, you use that guy who's coming in as just because he's trying to get stuff out of me. No, not at all. This is part of, we build a relationship together. you gotta like people if you want to do this. You gotta have to be willing to put up with a lot. It's just the way it is. Not everybody is sweet and nice. Not everybody says things in a tactful way. Not everybody does things the way you kind of expect or want, and you have to be able to deal with all different types. So be aware of it. Know who you are, and then you could. You could be fine with all these other things. Just be aware that there's a lot out there.
And I think that's also such an important fact, which either you do on purpose or you do by accident. But, so many people who are in positions where they are, whatever, call it sales, call it fundraising. It's the you're trying to get someone to buy into whatever you have. So many people feel upset about that. And if they don't enjoy the process, like it's not the right fit for them. But if they enjoy the process, and it's like, it's not just if you build the world's biggest fundraiser, but it's like, you just actually like what you're doing on a daily basis. That's ultimately how you build this really big fundraiser, and not the reverse, which is that you really hate what you're doing. But, if you end up with an outcome that's good, you'll make peace with it.
Correct. That I agree with. I did hear a line a bunch of years ago, and it's one of those things that just like stuck in my head because I hold it to really be true. And it was talking about sales, and the guy said that people love to buy, but they hate to be sold. Right. So when you take that and you apply that, like I apply it in Bike for Chai all the time when I'm talking to guys, everybody wants to do good. Everybody wants to help. Everybody, they do. I do that. I believe, really innately, every one of us, we are definitely, we were all made b'tselem Elokim, and we all truly value and appreciate, the life. We appreciate everything about life, and we want it to be better for people. And I think everybody feels that way. They just, like you said, it's the process that people are bothered by. So love the process, enjoy it, make it about being a friend, and then you could ask, because that's not bad. Because you want to help as much as you want to help. All I'm doing is facilitating your helping, but I'm doing it in a way that actually you truly feel and know that you're actually doing something, so that you feel good about it. Great. So then what about that process is bad? Everything about that makes it so much better. You're getting what you want. I'm getting what I want. We're all happy about it, and we're all doing it for the right reasons. If you're going to take that same thing and do it, obviously, where you're trying to, pull something out of someone, you're trying to manipulate people in con art and those type of things. Okay, different ball game, different set of standards that have to be dealt with, right? But that's not my case over here, and I think that as long as anybody takes that type of approach, people like to buy. People like to do good. They just want to feel it, and they don't want the bad process in it.
Amazing. Great. Yoel, tell me a little bit more about how people can find out about you or about Bike for Chai.
So Bike for Chai is www.bikeforchai.com or .org. All of them work. It's Bike, the number 4, then Chai, CHAI. It's all there. They could always, all my contact information is over there too. I think I show up online. I haven't Google searched myself in a long time, but I know I have a LinkedIn profile there. I have different things, but I'll tell you the truth is I'm always happy to talk to and meet new people. So I'm happy of the fact that since we've started Bike for Chai and we've built it up, I've also been, to whatever extent that people wanted, I've been able to help many other organizations also start fundraisers and also do more with that. It's something that I actually enjoy doing. I'm happy to help people. So, people want to reach out, I'm always happy to talk.
There you have it, folks, another inspiring episode. If you enjoyed this, I ask you to please share this with your friends and to like us over on Rabbi Rupp through Facebook or on YouTube. And the more that we're able to get these important messages out, the more that we can really make an impact in the world. So I encourage you, please, to stay tuned. We have a ton of amazing speakers coming up, and also to tell your friends about it. Thank you very much.